Hello everyone. Don't see anyone has joined, so let's wait.
Hello, Bhomik.
Hi Rohit, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Okay. Give me 1 minute, I'll just change the place and then I'll start the sharing. So until the last session, we have already completed until our ensemble method, which was my random forest. So we already created a random forest classifier. We saw how it is created, what are the properties. Now we will move on to a different set of classifier algorithms. But before we do so, I just wanted to know if there are any questions. So if there are any doubts which we have, so that we can clarify them, and then I can go ahead with the next set.
No doubts as of now.
Okay. Okay. So let me just share my screen. I just realized I didn't share my screen. So let me just share it. Today is 15th, right? Yeah, 15th. Yeah. I think you can see my screen. Sorry. Yeah. So okay, what I'm going to do is that uh, we are going to look into k nearest neighbors as of today. So this is also a classifier algorithm. Now, the only thing that we need to notice over here is that as of now, we have looked into classifiers which were either, let's say, probabilistic in nature, or they had some kind of, let's say, geometry. Right. So, for example, when we looked into logistic regression is more of what it is more of the probabilistic kind of methods which we have, right? But even in logistic regression, there comes a concept of, let's say, distance, right? Again, in the decision tree, it's like the decision boundaries that we were creating, right? The boundaries, of course, geometrically, if we look at them, they are like parallel to the axis, right? So geometric interpretation will say that this country is more of, let's say, if I consider or if I try to compare that with, let's say, traditional software systems, then I can directly compare that with nested if else kind of things, right? Uh, because that's how it fundamentally works, right? But and then we looked into random forests. Now, in case of the random forests, we looked into what we looked into just a method, okay, by means of which we tried to combine the best of both the worlds, right? We said that okay, we know what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages of a decision tree. We will try to improve that if there is any way, and that's the reason why we used an ensemble method. Now we are again going to look into a classifier, right? A classifier which tries to work basis the distance as a factor, right? So it uses distance as a factor, and by making use of distance as a factor, uh, it is again going to perform the classification. So I can write that this method KNN, or otherwise known as uh, K nearest neighbors, uh, tend to make use of distance based metrics. Okay, distance based metrics to firstly group similar items, which should not be confused with clustering, which we will be learning later as part of unsupervised learning methods. Uh, so, firstly, it tries to group similar items by the distances, okay, by the distances which they have between them. So, BW is just the small word that I'm using for between. they have it in them, post which they continue, post which they classify the position, okay, of a new point. This is the distances distance based model which it has already learned, right, from the patterns which it found in the training data. So the overall way in which we are going to run the algorithm is going to be just the same. So uh, for some of the cases, it may even sound boring to you because we are again going to do the data selection, we are again going to do the data description, they're going to do the data analysis, right? Then we are going to do the model training. You know how these things work right now because we have already seen that in our code. So the code wise, it's going to remain almost the same, right? It's really not so going to change, right? But the way it works, right? The way it works is how KNN is going to differ, right? So what it does is, uh, let me just try to write this. So let's say, uh, given given a data set, usually which is our training data. So I'm just going to do one thing. Basics. I'm going to call this the basics, right? So given a data set, which is usually my training data, uh, for each and every point which is there inside the data set, right? So for each and every point which is there inside a data set, so for each data point or each observation, sorry, uh, we can classify, okay, new points which are okay, which are mathematically or geometrically closer to the previously identified. So this is quite easy to understand how this works. Okay, let's see. Okay, how this works. Let's see. So if I'll just create a few cells over here and let me come down. Let me use my pen. So for example, I have a data set which looks like this. Okay, so it has X and Y. Okay. Now I'm not going to define what is X and Y right now because it's really not going to matter as to what is X and what is Y. Later on, we can define basis our data, right? So basis our data, we can try to define what is going to be my exact X and what is going to be my exact Y. But what do we do? Give me 1 minute. I think I lost my pen. Yeah. So let's say I have two features or two attributes, basis which, okay, uh, even if this is a feature and this is a target, the concept is going to be the same. So in this axis, what I will do, okay, in this axis, what I will do, let's say I have some points which are of this violet color, okay, which are of this violet color, which are very, very close to each other, which are very, very close to each other. And then I have some points, let's say, I'll just take another color, let's say the orange color. You are still able to see my screen, right? Rohit? Hello? Hello? I don't think I'm. Are you able to hear me, Rohit?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
You can see my screen also, right?
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see it.
So what this algorithm will do is that basically for these two classes of data, which are somewhat, let's say, separable. In this example, what I have taken, okay, deliberately what I have taken is this is, let's say, case one or the scenario one. In this case, what is happening is this data that I have taken is clearly divisible. So I can clearly write a decision boundary over here. I can clearly write a decision boundary over here. Whatever is on this side of the decision boundary, it belongs to one class. Whatever is this side of the decision boundary belongs to another class. Right? It is as simple as that. So now what KNN is going to do? Now I can do this using, let's say, a decision tree also. I can do this using a decision tree also. What I can do is that I can find a value of X. Let's say the value of X is X1. And I can draw a hyperplane, right? A hyperplane which is going to say that in case of a decision tree, it will be like the conditional statement. So if value of X is between or the value of X is less than X1, right? Then it belongs to category Y1, right? Or let's say this axis is actually Z. right? And x and z are the features. So if x is less than x1 and z is, let's say, is less than z1, then all the points which are in this class, they actually belong to the category y1, else they belong to category y2. So I could have done a decision tree here also, but the places where decision tree doesn't work is where you have, let's say, difference in the way the points are actually structured. So we will come to an example like that. But in case of a k nearest neighbor, what we do is we create a point, a special point. The algorithm is going to create this point. That point is this point. Okay, this triangle that I'm drawing, I'm going to give it a name. So one triangle is created for the orange points, right? And one triangle is created for these violet points, right? So one triangle is created for the violet points, one triangle is created for the orange points. These special points which KNN has created, okay, these are the points which are not there in the data. This is not came, or it's not part of the training data. It's created by the KNN algorithm. Okay, so as it identified the distances of each of the points, it came up with 2 points. One is this point, and one is this point. And then it saved the model. Okay, then it remembered the position. If you want to know the position of this, okay, if you want to know the position of this point, how will you define it? So it will be something like xi comma zi, right? If I simply write it in the geometrical terms, it is x comma y, right? Just the coordinates. So in the same way, this one will also have, let's say, xj comma zj, right? It's just going to remember the coordinates, and then what happens? Let's say I get a new point. Okay? I get a new point, which is this green point. The moment you get a new point, it is going to see what is the distance. Okay, what is the distance of this new point from either this point, from this diamond point which it has already identified, or the rest of the points, which are already classified as part of one class. It's going to take the distance of that point. Okay, it's going to take the distance of that point. Once it gets the distance, it is going to say, obviously, this point is very, very closer to my violet points, but this new green point is not really that close as compared to. So let's say the distance from this green point to this violet point is d1, and the distance from this green point to this orange point is d2. So obviously d1 is less than d2, right? Because it is closer to the violet point. So because it is closer to the violet points, it's going to classify this point. Okay, it's going to classify this point as belonging to the group y is equal to 1, right? So how it is exactly classifying, how the mathematics works, we are going to go through that. But basically, this is what is going to happen when it comes to k nearest neighbor. So k nearest neighbor is saying, okay, that I'm going to define the number of neighbors. I'm going to define a value for k. Okay, how we are going to define that, we are going to learn, right? Don't worry how k is really defined, or how this kind of a triangle point it is really coming up with. This is actually an optional thing. This may really not happen basis what kind of KNN we are trying to implement. Okay, but usually what happens is I'm going to define a k, and then it is going to say that if for those k points, for any new point green, okay, so new point is green. Okay, the new point that I have taken, let's say this is a point from my testing data or my unseen data. If this new point is closer to k number of observations or k number of points which already belongs to one class, then I'm going to classify this new point as belonging to the same class, right? How it is going to know that what is going to be closer or what is going to be distant? It's simply going to take a distant metric. So we have to provide the algorithm. We have to tell the algorithm what kind of distance, yeah, what kind of distance it should be looking for. There are multiple types of distances it will be looking at. So basis the kind of distance we wanted to look for, because there are types of mathematical distances. Okay, we will be looking into Manhattan, we will be looking into Euclidean. These are the kind of distances which are there, right, in the math world. So basis the kind of distance we wanted to look into, it's going to look at the distance of this new point, from already identified k number of points. Okay, if it is closer to the already identified k number of points which belongs to one class, it's going to declare this new class being part of that class, else the other class. It's also similar to kind of an if else kind of a thing which is happening over here, but uh, now it is not entirely basis some kind of logic. Okay, and the pattern is entirely basis the distance. Now clearly there is one problem which you can find over here. If I'm going to do things basis distance, right? So the similarity, right? The similarity that I am trying to find between existing k points or existing k number of points as opposed to or as compared to this new green point is purely based on the distance metric, right? It is purely based on the distance metric. Clearly, there will be problems. Obviously, there will be problems if I have a point which is here. Obviously, it's going to be a problem if I have a point over here because technically, if I take any kind of a distance, it is closer to the orange point. So obviously, this new point, let's say this is P of A, okay, this P of A, this new point will get classified as part of Y2, right? Or it will get classified as part of class 2, right? It may not really be part of class 2. It may really be a invalid outlier, which means it may well be the case that it is a data ingestion issue or it is really a data writing issue. It is a data engineering kind of problem. It is not a data which is collected in the right way. Most probably it is a wrong data. So that is the place where it's not going to work. Okay, that is the place where this algorithm might fail. So we have to do something to make it work. So we will look into what kind of things or what kind of feature scaling we can do to make it work. But if we can make this work, then clearly, okay, KNN in terms of the classification that it does is very, very simple because the only thing that we need to understand is nothing to do with probability, nothing to do with statistics really. In the backend, it's all based on the distance, right? Obviously, there will be some form of statistics and probability involved because data science is really incomplete without statistics and probability. But the kind of criteria, right? The choosing criteria of a new point being part of any class, okay, like this PA is being classified as Y2 or this green point is being classified as Y1, right? Is purely based on what kind of distance metric I choose. So I'm going to choose the distance metric, and then the model is going to already, it has learned the patterns out of the groups, right? The groups that it has created basis the kind of condensation or the minimum number of items in that group that I've already provided. And basis that, it's going to cluster my new data. Now, there is one thing which I wanted to clearly tell you is that I'm just going to redraw another kind of scenario. Okay, I'm just going to redraw one more kind of a scenario, in which case I'm going to do a clear bifurcation and I'm going to go in depth also. So don't worry, whatever I'm saying, I'm going to be repeating that for 100 times. So although this is a very easy algorithm to understand, there is always a confusion. The confusion is always with the other technique whose name is really similar to KNN. The KNN is K nearest neighbor, and there is one more technique in unsupervised learning where there is no target. You see, that is the reason why I have drawn these two sets of data. Let's say this belongs to some class which I don't know, and this belongs to some group which I don't know. Let's say these are the employees in my company. When I have plotted them basis their age and their salary, and age and salary, both of them are features. They are not the target, which means I don't know what is the right outcome or the wrong outcome. So that becomes an unsupervised learning problem, things which we have not learned yet, right? We have not really learned what is an unsupervised learning problem. We will see things like PCA, we'll see things like clustering and so on. Now, when we see things like clustering, these are the two clusters I've come up with. Let's say this is cluster 1 of my employees and this is cluster 2 of my employees. These are logical groupings, otherwise known as clusters. So this methodology of clustering is also known as k-means clustering. Okay, it is also known as k-means clustering. So in this case also, this terminology k is what confuses people with k nearest neighbor, because the way this one looks, the way or the shape and size of how k nearest neighbor clustering looks is almost, let's say, similar. If I just draw my previous diagram, it is going to look like this, right? If you look at this diagram and if you look at this diagram, the one which is on the left, it is actually a k nearest neighbor case, and the one which is on the right is a k means case. How can I tell? Because in this case, in the left hand case, I have two colors. I have already created my points in two colors, which means basis my training data, basis my historical data, I already know which point belongs to which group. I know these points, these square points, these x points belongs to, let's say, some class y is equal to 1, and this round ones, they belong to, let's say, class y is equal to 2, which I know already. In this case, in case of key means, I don't know. This is a very common confusion which happens to people, right? So please don't make such kind of a confusion. KNN is a different thing. K means is a completely different thing. There are some overlap between knn and k means basis the kind of distance metrics that we are going to use. So that's why a lot of terminology will be overlapping with each other, but people often make this kind of a confusion or a mistake that they are both the same, but they are not, right? They are not. Give me 1 minute. I'm actually getting a chat. Let me just stop my sharing and quickly look into this chat and get back to you. Uh, just a moment. Okay. Okay. So what we can do now is that okay, let me take an example to explain this to you. Right? Okay. So what I'm going to do. Okay. What I'm going to do is that uh, mm, okay. Okay. So let me again try to take this example and where is my Zoom? Yeah. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my screen, and then what I'm going to do is that again I'm going to draw that same kind of a diagram because I just wanted to make sure. No, this is not the right thing to do. I'm not going to draw any axis. Okay, I'm not going to draw any axis just to avoid any confusion related to which axis belongs to what and which axis belongs to what not. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead, rather than looking into any axis, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to draw two sets of points. Okay, I'm going to draw two sets of points. Let me just change the way I'm drawing them. So I'm just going to draw them as, let's say, these are one set of points. Okay? These are one set of data points which are part of a single group as per my training data. So I have historical data, okay, which says they are part of one group, and I have historical data which says okay, these are part of one more group. Now I'm trying to create an environment. Okay, deliberately, I'm trying to create an example where the decision boundary is really not clear. So I will be putting some points here and there. Yeah, I will be putting some points here and there, right? So I'm just going to make things really coagulated with each other. Okay, so let's say these are the actual points. Okay, these are the actual points. Okay, so these are the points that I have identified basis my data. Now, what is going to happen? What is going to happen if I get a data point which is here? Okay, I can say, okay, I can say most probably. Let me take a black pen. I can say that this point over here is quite close to this blue point, quite close to this blue point, and it is quite close to this orange point. Okay, so I have 3 points. I have 3 points which is closer to this green point. I have 3 points which is closer to this new green point. Out of which two of them are violet points, one of them are orange points. Right? Two of them are the violet points, one of them are the orange points. So most probably this green new green point belongs to the violet class, right? Why? Because if I take just a diameter, if I just take a random circle around the green point and try to encapsulate 3 more nearby points, okay, try to encapsulate 3 more nearby points, I see that at least 2 of those nearby points are the violet points and one of them is the orange point. So there is a higher probability. Here is where the probabilistic kind of the nature comes into play. So there is a higher probability, okay, that this point, okay, this new green point actually belongs to which class? It belongs to the violet class as opposed to the orange class. So this is exactly how k nearest neighbor works. In which case, the reason why I draw or the reason why I drew this black line is because I have determined the k value in my algorithm is equal to 3, which means if I'm determined the number of nearby items is equal to 3, okay, or of k, the value of k is equal to 3, let's say that I have defined, in which case the nearest neighbor algorithm draws an area of supervision, which is this black line, right? It draws an area of supervision, which is this black line, tries to take this new point along with at least 3 more points, or exactly 3 more points which are in the vicinity. So it is going to take the most nearby 3 points, right? It's not going to take this point, or it's not going to take this point. It's also not going to take this point. It's going to calculate the distance. Okay, how is it we're going to do that? Let me just try to clear the black portion if I can. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, I'm just going to do some series of control Z things so that I can remove the black ones. And then I'm going to try to see how I can calculate the distance, if at all I can calculate the distance. Now the question is, I have this green point. Now I create a circular kind of a thing using 3 points. Okay, so I take 3 points. Why did I take these 3 points? Why did I not take these 3 points? Or these 4 points? Okay, the reason why I took these 3 points is because you can clearly see from our open eyes only we can see that the distance between these 3 points are the closest. So let's say this distance, each distance is given as d1, d2, and d3. Okay, so let's say d1 is this, okay, d2 is this, okay, and d3 is this. Okay, so I've taken the distance somehow using some kind of a mathematical calculation. I have taken the distance. I've taken the distance of this new point with the nearby 3 points. Why nearby 3 points? Because k is equal to 3, right? K is equal to 3. So I have taken the distance between the new point and the nearby 3 points. And then I saw what is the max vote, or I took a vote. In this area, let's say this area is given as A1. Okay. How many points do I have? I have 2 violet points. Okay. And I have 1 orange point. So there is a very high probability because 66.67% data in this area, right? If I have if I have 3 values and 2 of them belongs to violet, it means what? 67% of my data, okay, 67% of my data points in that area belongs to violet, and 33% of my data belongs to what? It belongs to orange. Because more points belong to violet, that is the reason why, right? That is the reason why I'm going to consider this a green point now as part of the violet class, and I'm going to classify it accordingly, right? So what I have done over here, very simple thing, I have given the value of k, that's an input parameter. I have to give the value of k, and by means of some distance calculation, this is what we have to study. That's the only math, right? That's the only math which we have over here. Other than that, we have no math, because this number is something which you provide as an instance variable, right? When you create an object of that k nearest neighbor classifier class, you have to pass the value, right? By default, it has some value. Okay? sklearn is going to give you by default some value, but you can also override that. You can also pass your own value, right? You define the value of k, and accordingly it draws what? So you define the value of k. This is step number 1. It is going to draw this circle, and this is the distance, and then it is going to take the vote, okay, and then it is going to classify the point, right? So this is exactly what it is doing. Let me just try to write it down over here. So step 1, we provide an arbitrary value of k. Okay, later we will see that this value is actually having a domain sense attached to it. Okay, how that sense of domain comes into picture is something we have to explain, and that is really case by case basis, because domain is really case by case basis. So we have to understand how the effect of one domain may force you to choose, let's say, a value of k is equal to 3. And if you're working on some other domain, let's say you're working in the telecom domain, you might be selecting a value of k is equal to 5. If you're working in the medical domain, you might be selecting a value of k is equal to 3. Right? So depending on the area in which you are working, the value of k might change, right? So it's kind of a subjective thing, right? So we will understand later how that subject comes into picture. Step number 1, we provide an arbitrary, sorry, this is a spelling mistake. We provide an arbitrary value of k. This is the value of k. KNN algo. Give me 1 minute. KNN algo will select a number of nearby points. This is some distance factor from the new or test point or unknown observation. Okay. So before even doing that, during training of the model, it has already identified the classes and the distances with with each observation of each class. Each class is why I'm writing this as each class is because this can, I mean, k-nearest neighbor is not limited to a binary class, right? I mean, it's not only used for a binary class kind of a classification just because I used an example with two different classes. It can have n classes. Okay, so before even we uh, go to point number 2, our model has already trained itself and it has understood the distances between each and every point, and it has classified, it has kept into mind the kind of patterns which we see, right? Uh, this is the distance between each point that belongs to each class. So it has already identified the classes and the distances which each observation of each class has presented as form of the training data. So as part of the training data, it has already identified it. Now what it is going to do, this is the value of k, in an algorithm will select k number of nearby points. Okay. Within the selected within the selected area, it takes the distance measures and probability measure to classify the new point, which this is the concentration. So this is the concentration of points in the selected area, right? So if in the selected area we have one class of items which is more than the other class, obviously it's going to say that this new or unseen point belongs to which class? The class which has more number, right? Now, all we need to understand, okay, all we need to understand is how is, there are two vital questions over here. How to select the value of k? And the second question is um, uh, which distance metric or formula to be used. Okay. Other practical problems will include, let's say, the other practical problems which will be there as part of the model training that we are going to do. Other practical problems will be what? If there are outliers in the data, okay, okay. If there are, if the classes are not geometrically separable or linearly separable, right? If the classes are not linearly separable or geometrically separable, can I still create a k nearest neighbor? In that case, what shall I do? What will be the limitations? Or let's say use cases where KNN does not scale well, right? Cases where KNN will be more prone, okay, prone to make mistakes. And a very vital question, this is something which we are going to look at the end. Can this method be used for both classification and regression? Okay. All of these is something that we are going to answer. Once we understand how the distance metric works, we will understand this. Is there any question until this point in time?
No questions.
No. No. Let's look into the first method. Okay. The first method of calculating the distance, right? So methods to calculate the distances or the distance. Okay, how does it do? There are two most prominent ways, let's say, in which we can do this. There are other ways also. Okay, there are other ways also. So I'm just going to tell you three ways, but we are going to make use of mainly two ways because that's the most used, or let's say most useful two ways in which we can calculate the distance. One is known as Euclidean distance. Okay, the second is known as Manhattan distance, and the third is known as uh, let me yes, Hamming distance. Okay, these are the three different methods in which we calculate the distance. Right. So when are we calculating the distance? We are calculating the distance both in case of when the model is training from the provided data. So you have already provided some kind of a training data. It is learning the patterns. At that point also it is going to take the distance into account, because using the distance only it is going to learn the pattern. Then it is also going to take into account the distance when there is a new point. You throw in a new point, it's going to find out. Okay, it is going to find out if that point belongs to class A or class B, or for that matter class N. Right. So let's look into Euclidean distance. Okay, so how this Euclidean distance works is, this is by far the most easy way to calculate the distance. So let's say in case of a 2D setup or two-dimensional kind of a setup. So let's say I have two axes x and y. Find a distance between 2 points. Okay, let's say P and Q. Okay, we simply we simply subtract the distance, the x and y coordinates. Okay, coordinates of one point from the other. Right. So that's all we are going to do. It is just like measuring the distance with a measuring tape. If I'm going to just, let's say you are standing 3 feet away from me and Paranks is standing 4 feet away from me, how do I know you are 3 feet and how do I know he is 4 feet away? I simply take a tape. I simply take a measuring tape. I take one tape, I ask you to hold it. I take another tape, I ask you to hold. I ask Paranks to hold its end, and then I'm going to measure the distance. Right? How you are actually measuring the distance here? You are taking the x and y coordinates. You are taking the x and y coordinates which are there. Are you doing that? Let's say if I have two axes, let's say I have one axis here and one axis here, right? And I have 2 points over here. One point is P, one point is Q. Yeah, I have 2 points over here. This is one axis X, this is one axis Y. This P point, if I project parallel lines or perpendicular lines on X and Y, it's going to have some value X1 and Y1. And even this Q is going to have some value. Let's say this is Y2, and this value which is projected on x-axis is x2, right? So I need to find what? I need to find this one. This is the distance which I want to find. So let's say I'm going to mark this, or I'm going to call this as dp comma q. What is the distance between p and q, right? What is the distance between p and q? So how am I going to do that? Simply I'm going to take help of the Pythagoras theorem. Okay, I'm going to take help of the Pythagoras theorem. What is distance here? The distance over here is what? X2 minus x1, right? X2 is a greater value. I'm going to take x2 minus x1. So let's say this value becomes a, right? And this value over here, this one is what? The one which is on the y-axis is what? Y2 minus y1. Although it really is not going to matter if I have taken y1 minus y2 or y2 minus y1. I'll show you why. And the reason is as simple as, if b is y2 minus y1 and a is equal to x2 minus x1, I have to calculate this distance between p and q. Let this be c. So according to Pythagoras theorem, c square is equal to a square plus b square, right? C square is equal to a square plus b square. Then what is c? Root under a square plus b square, right? As simple as it sounds. Then A is what and B is what? You just have to replace the value. So A is what? X2 minus X1 plus X2 minus X1 whole square plus Y2 minus Y1 whole square. Right? Now this is the scenario for what? This is the scenario for 2 points. Right? This is the scenario which we have for 2 points. So let's just try to write this down. If I want to write this down, I just want to write this down. If P has coordinates x1, y1, and Q has coordinates x2, comma y2, then to calculate the distance between P and Q, okay, P and Q, P and Q given as a d of P, comma Q, we can use simple Pythagoras theorem and say, okay, d of P, comma Q, okay, is equal to what? Root under. So I'm going to say square root. Okay, square root of what? The one of a distance squares. Okay, plus just a moment. I think I have placed one. Plus another distance square. So what is the first one? The first one, according to what I have written, is x2, x2 minus x1, right? X2 minus x1, and then the other one is what? Y2 minus y1, right? Now, because I am taking a square, it doesn't really matter whether I have taken a y1 minus y2 or y2 minus y1, right? Because it is going to be anyways be normalizing the value. If I take a square, even if it is in minus, it's going to take a square and then it's going to go away. So it doesn't matter, right? So if I take a square root, I'll get the d of p and q, right? In this way, I can calculate. So we can now say wherever between 2 points p and q, the distance is small, they are closer. Or in other words, they belong or they have a very high chance or very high probability to be part of the same class, right? Right. I hope you got my point, right? So it's a very simple kind of a calculation, the most easier to understand, right? I hope there are no doubts here. So what happens now? What happens? Let me just clear the drawings. Clear all drawings here. Now, what happens if I have, let's say, n-dimensional space? If I have n-dimensional space, I'm not really going to write this in the text box because it's very difficult for me to write the summation kind of the formula. But you will get this from, let's say, Google or from Wikipedia also. The summation, the square root or the value is going to be summation. Okay, I is equal to 1 to n. Let's say n is the number of, let's say, dimensions in the data. So rather than taking 2 dimensions like we took earlier, x and y, now I am talking about nd data. In case of n dimensional kind of data, it's summation of I equal to 1 to n x I, or it's a 1 points value minus other points value, right? Whole square, right? So this is how we calculate the distance between the points P and Q, right? In case of the n kind of a dimension, right? So this is the most simple way to understand the distance. We will come to know how these distances are used. Okay, now let's try to understand the second kind of a distance. The second kind of a distance, okay, the second kind of a distance is known as the Manhattan distance. Okay, so let me just write this in Manhattan distance. So this distance measure is an idea taken from city planning. kind of use cases or setup. Okay, why I say this is because it has different other names also. It has different other names also. It has different other names like L1 norm. In some books, you will find this as L1 norm. In some books, you will find it as taxi cab norm, right? In some books, you will find it as rectilinear norm. Okay. In some books, you will find it as city block norm, etc. Right? The reason why in each and every name you can clearly see, other than L1, L1 is actually a statistical name. Every other name which you see over here is referring to some kind of a distance when you are talking about some kind of an urban kind of a setup. So some kind of a city. So for example, you have booked an Uber cab and that Uber cab is at location A, you are at location B. How does Uber cab find out what is the distance to your location? Okay, how does that Uber app shows the direction? So it has some kind of a map in that app, and that app, let's say, is referring to, let's say, Google Maps, and Google Maps is already having information about the proper roads, right, or the road by means of which that car can travel from point A to point B, right? So it's going to give, it's going to take a distance basis that kind of a roadway, right, taking care of the city blocks, taking care of the zigzag kind of shapes and the patterns which the roads can take up. So Manhattan distance in mathematics is also following that similar kind of a terminology, or the way it works is also similar, right? The distance represents the sum of, okay, the distance, I can say the distance represents the sum of, okay, absolute, okay. Now, this is the main difference between Manhattan and the Euclidean distance, okay. So here we are not going to take the square. We are not going to rely on the um, um, uh, on the taking advantage from the Pythagoras theorem. So in case of the Euclidean distance, we took some input, some help from the Pythagoras theorem. Okay, here I'm going to take the absolute differences from the from the opposite values in vector of distances, or let's say positions. Now, how is it really given is, let's say, Manhattan distance. Let's say I'm going to just call it MD, x comma y. Okay, I have two places, x comma y. X is where your cab is standing, y is where your house is. So you have booked a cab, and that cab, the driver is at location x, you are at location y. How do you calculate Manhattan distance between x and y is summation of I equal to 1 to n. Okay, depending on how many dimensions of data we have, I equal to 1 to n. Summation of I equal to 1 to n. I have what? Summation of I equal to 1 to n. I'll have the distance from one point to another. Just give me 1 minute. Distance from one point to another, which is, let's say, x of I. X I. No, I'm not going to write it like this. Otherwise, it is considering this as a cell. I'm just going to write it like this. X of I minus y of I. Right? So in above case, what the only difference that I have from Euclidean is that this value which is there inside the bracket is actually this value which I have inside the bracket, okay, is the absolute value, right? So I'm actually taking the absolute. I'm actually taking the absolute value. So I'm just going to make a quick note over here how it is doing. MD is given as summation I equal to I to n. N is the number of the dimensions in the data. Okay, the absolute value. Okay, the absolute value between xi minus yi. Now, the reason why this helps, or the reason why in some cases Manhattan distance, okay, given by this formula is better than Euclidean distance is because in case of Euclidean distance, I'm taking a square root after doing a square and a summation. Every time, any square value, and this is by math, this is really no uh, rocket science. Every time you take a square of the distances, if you have an outlier point, in the data, the most effect comes over here. The most effect comes over here. The second thing with the square is that's the first point. First point is Euclidean distance is very much affected with outliers. Let me just write it over here also. Okay, so Euclidean distance, although simple to understand, is almost always affected by outliers. If your data doesn't have outliers, then that's great. If you have figured out ways to make sure your data doesn't have outliers, very good. If you are in a position to get rid of those outlier points, very good. Then Euclidean distance will work fine. Then also there is an issue. Other issue is that calculating square root, if you are already into, let's say, parallel to these sessions which we are having, if you are already reading about Python and the data structures and let's say time and space, let's say complexity, then you will obviously agree to me that calculating square root is time and space complex. Okay, more, right? As compared to non-square method. If I have any other distance calculation methods like the Manhattan distance where I'm not calculating the square and the square root, this is actually computationally friendly. This method is more computationally friendlier than Euclidean distance. Now, what do I mean by computationally friendly? Obviously, there will be cases where we will have higher dimensional data. Whenever you have higher dimensional of data, let's say you may really have a very genuine use case, a genuine business problem, where after all the feature collection or the data collection that I've done from variety of different sources, you end up resulting with 40 columns. So those 40 columns, okay, over a period of time, maybe we may want to reduce 40 to 35, but you are not able to reduce it even further. We want to do other unsupervised learning techniques that we are going to learn at later, say like PCA, LDA, or TSNE by means of which you can do dimensionality reduction. But let's say prima facie you have a business problem where 35 out of 35 features are really very important and they contribute to the business. In that kind of a high dimensional, let's say, scenario, Euclidean distance if you use, okay, it's going to be time and space complex. Then it also has an effect with the outliers. Also, since Manhattan distance, okay, uses absolute value, it is more, let's say, protected from effect of outlier. Okay, so this is the advantage between Manhattan distance and the Euclidean distance, right? So for some cases, Euclidean distance is excellent. Almost always, it is really very good. It is easy. It is easy. You can understand it really very easily. But Manhattan distance is going to shine when you have higher dimensional data, and even if you have outliers in the data, because you are taking absolute value, right? I hope it is clear until now. I see we are already closer of our time. Let's make a close here. Rohit. If you don't have any questions, or we can discuss the questions also, and then we can close. And then most probably tomorrow, since I will be traveling, we may not have a session. So we will do again from, say, Thursday. And from Thursday, we will look into how to implement, or I'm going to tell you why KNNs are actually known as lazy learners. Okay, why they are called lazy learners, and what is the how do we choose the absolute value of K?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Rohit. Then if at this point in time we don't have any questions, so let's close.
Okay. Thanks, Bomik.
Thank you so much, Rohit. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.